Today you'll learn about the story of Sergeant Marcus Thompson, a tomb guard at Arlington National Cemetery, in a journey that led him to one of the most powerful moments of redemption ever captured on camera. Get ready for an emotional narrative full of unexpected turns. Before we begin this incredible story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're listening to this story from. The morning mist hung heavy over Arlington National Cemetery as Sergeant Marcus Thompson adjusted his pristine white gloves for what felt like the 1000th time. The weight of his M14 rifle pressed against his shoulder, a familiar comfort that had become second nature over his 3 years as a tomb guard. But today felt different. Today, the usual pride that swelled in his chest when he looked at the tomb of the unknown soldier was tainted with something else entirely: doubt. Marcus had always been the perfect soldier. At 26, he stood 6 feet tall with the kind of military bearing that commanded respect. His uniform was always immaculate, his movements precise, his dedication unwavering. The other guards looked up to him, and tourists often stopped mid-conversation when they saw him perform the changing of the guard ceremony. He was everything a tomb guard should be. But 3 weeks ago, everything changed. It was during a routine ceremony when Marcus made the mistake that would haunt him. A group of rowdy teenagers had been disrupting the solemn atmosphere, laughing and taking selfies near the tomb. As Marcus approached to address them, his foot caught on an uneven stone. For just a moment, barely 2 seconds, he stumbled. His rifle shifted, his perfect posture broke, and the sacred silence was shattered by the sound of his equipment clanking. The teenagers laughed harder. Someone filmed it. Within hours, the video was everywhere. Social media, news outlets, late-night talk shows. Tomb guard trips and falls became a viral sensation, complete with memes and remixes. The comments were brutal. People questioned his competence, his dedication, even his right to guard such a sacred place. Marcus felt the weight of shame pressing down on him, heavier than any rifle he'd ever carried. His commanding officer, Colonel Patricia Hayes, had been understanding but firm. "Son, this job requires perfection, not just most of the time, all the time. These unknown soldiers deserve nothing less." Now, as Marcus prepared for another day of duty, he couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was watching him, waiting for him to fail again. The other guards tried to be supportive, but he could see the concern in their eyes. Staff Sergeant David Chen, his closest friend among the guards, had pulled him aside yesterday. "Marcus, you're in your head too much," David had said, his voice gentle but serious. "The unknown soldiers don't care about some stupid video. They care about honor, respect, and dedication. You've got all three in spades." But Marcus wasn't so sure anymore. As he took his position for the morning's first ceremony, he noticed the crowd was larger than usual. Many people held phones, clearly hoping to witness another viral moment. The pressure felt suffocating. The ceremony began like any other. Marcus stepped forward with measured precision, his polished boots clicking against the marble in the familiar 21-step routine. Each movement was deliberate, each turn executed with military perfection. But inside, his mind raced with memories of that fateful stumble, the laughter, the viral humiliation that had followed him for weeks. As he reached the end of his walk and executed the face-about turn, Marcus caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd. It was James Mitchell, a 68-year-old Vietnam veteran who visited the tomb every month without fail. James always stood in the same spot, always wore his old service jacket with faded ribbons, and always maintained perfect silence during the ceremonies. But today, something was different about the old veteran's expression. Marcus had spoken with James several times over the years. The veteran had lost his best friend, Private Tommy Rodriguez, in the jungles of Vietnam in 1968. Tommy's body was never recovered, never identified, never brought home. For James, the tomb of the unknown soldier represented not just respect for fallen heroes, but a personal connection to his lost brother in arms. "Every time I watch you boys perform that ceremony," James had once told Marcus, "I see Tommy getting the honor he deserved. You're not just guarding a tomb, son. You're guarding the memory of every soldier who never made it home." Those words had meant everything to Marcus before the incident. Now they felt like a weight he could no longer carry. As the ceremony continued, Marcus noticed unusual movement in the crowd. A group of college students had positioned themselves near the front, and their behavior was becoming increasingly disruptive. They whispered loudly, pointed at Marcus, and one of them held up a phone, clearly recording. Marcus recognized the look in their eyes, They were hoping for another viral moment. "Hey, isn't that the guy who tripped?" one of them said, not bothering to lower his voice. "Yeah, let's see if he falls again," another laughed. The disrespect cut through Marcus like a knife, but he maintained his composure. This was exactly what he had feared, becoming a spectacle rather than a guardian. The sacred nature of this place, the solemnity that should surround the tomb, was being reduced to entertainment. But then something unexpected happened. As Marcus completed another pass, one of the college students stepped forward, crossing the barrier rope that separated the crowd from the ceremonial area. The young man, wearing a backwards baseball cap and a smirk, pulled out a small American flag and began waving it mockingly. "Come on, soldier boy," the student called out. "Let's see those perfect moves now." The crowd gasped. Even the other students looked uncomfortable with their friend's behavior. This wasn't just disrespectful, it was a violation of federal law. The tomb area was sacred ground, and crossing that barrier was strictly forbidden. Marcus felt his training kick in. Protocol was clear. Any disruption to the ceremony required immediate intervention, but as he moved toward the student, his mind flashed back to his stumble 3 weeks ago. What if he messed up again? What if this became another viral moment? The student continued his taunting, now waving the flag more aggressively. "What's wrong? Scared you'll trip again?" That's when Marcus saw James Mitchell step forward from the crowd. The old veteran's face was flushed with anger, his hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Marcus thought James might physically intervene, but instead, the veteran did something that would change everything. James removed his own service cap and placed it over his heart. Then, in a voice that carried across the entire ceremonial area, he began to recite the names of fallen soldiers he had known. Private Tommy Rodriguez, killed in action, Vietnam, 1968. Corporal Michael Stevens, killed in action, Vietnam, 1969. Other veterans in the crowd began to join him. One by one, they removed their hats and added names to the growing list. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. The college student with the flag suddenly looked very small and very foolish, but the young man wasn't finished. In a moment of defiant stupidity, he grabbed the flag tighter and took another step toward the tomb itself. That's when Marcus knew exactly what he had to do. Marcus moved with a speed and precision that surprised even himself. In 3 swift strides, he closed the distance between himself and the disruptive student. The young man, emboldened by what he thought was hesitation, raised the flag higher and took another step toward the sacred tomb. "Sir, you need to step back immediately," Marcus commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 years of flawless service. But the student, clearly seeking his own viral moment, laughed and shook his head. "Make me trip, boy," the student sneered, waving the flag in Marcus's face. What happened next would be replayed millions of times across social media, but for entirely different reasons than Marcus's previous viral moment. In one fluid motion, Marcus reached out and firmly grasped the flagpole. The student, caught off guard by the sudden action, tried to pull back, but Marcus's grip was unshakable. "This flag," Marcus said, his voice steady and clear, "represents every soldier who died for your right to be disrespectful. But not here. Not at this tomb." The student tugged harder, his face reddening with effort and embarrassment. "Let go, man. It's just a stupid ceremony." Marcus felt something shift inside him. All the doubt, all the shame from his previous stumble, crystallized into pure determination. This wasn't about his reputation anymore. This wasn't about viral videos or public humiliation. This was about the sacred duty he had sworn to uphold. "No," Marcus said firmly. "You let go." The crowd had gone completely silent. Even the other college students stopped their chatter, sensing that something significant was happening. James Mitchell and the other veterans continued their quiet recitation of names, creating a powerful backdrop to the confrontation. The student made one final aggressive pull on the flag, trying to wrench it from Marcus's grasp, but Marcus was ready. With practiced precision, he stepped forward, used the student's own momentum against him, and in a move that was both gentle and decisive, he separated the flag from the young man's grip. The student stumbled backward, more from surprise than force, and found himself face to face with Marcus's unwavering stare. "Sir," Marcus said, holding the flag respectfully, "you have violated federal law by crossing the barrier and disrupting a military ceremony. You have 2 choices: leave immediately and respectfully, or be arrested." The student looked around. suddenly aware that hundreds of people were watching him. The phones that had been recording were still rolling, but now they were capturing his humiliation rather than Marcus's. His friends had backed away, clearly wanting no part of the confrontation. "This is ridiculous," the student muttered, but his bravado was gone. Marcus stepped closer, his voice dropping to a level that only the student could hear. "Son, I made a mistake 3 weeks ago. I stumbled and people laughed. But you know what? That stumble doesn't define me. My service does, my dedication does. And right now, my job is to protect the dignity of this place and the soldiers who rest here." The student's expression began to change. For the first time, he seemed to grasp the gravity of where he was and what he had done. "I suggest you use this moment to think about what really matters," Marcus continued. "These unknown soldiers died, so you could have the freedom to make better choices than the one you just made." The young man nodded slowly, his earlier defiance completely evaporated. Without another word, he turned and walked back toward his friends, who quickly ushered him away from the ceremonial area. Marcus turned to face the crowd, still holding the flag. The silence was profound, broken only by James Mitchell's continued recitation of fallen soldiers' names. Marcus walked to where the veteran stood and gently handed him the flag. "Thank you, sir," Marcus said quietly. James accepted the flag with trembling hands, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. "No, son, thank you. Tommy would be proud." As Marcus returned to his position, something extraordinary began to happen. The crowd, which had been silent during the confrontation, started to applaud. It began with James Mitchell, who clapped slowly and deliberately, his eyes never leaving Marcus's face. Then other veterans joined in, their applause measured and respectful. Soon the entire crowd was clapping, but it wasn't the wild, chaotic applause of entertainment. It was the deep, reverent appreciation of people who had witnessed something truly meaningful. Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion, but he maintained his composure. He had a ceremony to complete, and these unknown soldiers deserved nothing less than his absolute best. As he resumed his 21-step walk, each movement felt different. The weight of his rifle no longer felt burdensome. It felt purposeful. The precision of his steps wasn't just military protocol. It was a sacred dance of honor. Unknown to Marcus, dozens of phones had captured the entire incident. But unlike the video from 3 weeks ago, this footage told a completely different story. Within hours, the videos began appearing on social media with captions like, "Tomb Guard shows ultimate respect," and "This is what honor looks like." The hashtag Tomb Guard Redemption began trending worldwide. Sarah Chen, a military blogger with over 2 million followers, was among the first to share the video. Her caption read, "3 weeks ago, Sergeant Marcus Thompson became a viral meme for a moment of human imperfection. Today, he showed us what true strength and dedication look like. This is why our military deserves our respect, not our ridicule." The video spread like wildfire. News outlets picked it up, military families shared it, and even celebrities began commenting on the powerful display of dignity and service. But the most impactful responses came from other service members and veterans. Colonel Patricia Hayes watched the video from her office, tears streaming down her face. She immediately called Marcus's unit commander. "I want to see Sergeant Thompson in my office first thing tomorrow morning," she said, "and I want his entire chain of command there too." Meanwhile, at a VA hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, retired Marine Gunnery Sergeant Robert Williams was showing the video to his fellow veterans in the rehabilitation ward. Williams had lost both legs to an IED in Afghanistan and had been struggling with depression for months, but watching Marcus stand up for the dignity of fallen soldiers gave him something he hadn't felt in a long time: pride. "That's what we're about," Williams told his roommate, tears in his eyes. "That's why we served. Not for glory, not for recognition, but for moments like this, when someone stands up and says, 'Not here, not on my watch.'" Back at Arlington, Marcus completed his shift unaware of the storm of positive attention building around him. As he prepared to leave, Staff Sergeant David Chen approached him with a huge grin on his face. "Marcus, you need to see this," David said, holding up his phone. "You're famous again, but this time for all the right reasons." Marcus watched the video of himself confronting the disruptive student, his expression growing more amazed with each passing second. The comments section was flooded with support, gratitude, and respect. People were sharing their own stories of military service, talking about the importance of honoring fallen soldiers, and praising Marcus for his professionalism and dignity. One comment particularly caught his attention. It was from a user named Tommy's Mom 1968. "My son died in Vietnam. His body was never found. When I watch this video, I see someone who understands that these tombs aren't just monuments. They're sacred ground where our children rest. Thank you, Sergeant Thompson, for protecting their honor." Marcus felt his throat tighten as he read comment after comment from Gold Star families, veterans, and ordinary citizens who had been moved by what they witnessed. This wasn't just about him anymore. It had become something much larger. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Colonel Hayes' office expecting the worst. Instead, he found not just his commanding officer, but also General Patricia Morrison, the commanding general of the Military District of Washington, and several other high-ranking officials. "Sergeant Thompson," Colonel Hayes began, "yesterday you demonstrated exactly what it means to be a tomb guard. Your actions under pressure, your respect for the fallen, and your dedication to duty exemplify the highest traditions of military service." General Morrison stepped forward. "Son, in my 30 years of service, I've rarely seen such a perfect example of honor, courage, and commitment. Your actions yesterday reminded the entire nation why we serve and why these ceremonies matter." Marcus stood at attention, overwhelmed by the praise but still processing everything that had happened. "Ma'am, I was just doing my job." "No, Sergeant," the general replied. "You were doing much more than that. You were protecting something sacred, and you did it with a kind of grace and strength that makes me proud to wear this uniform." Colonel Hayes smiled. "Marcus, we're recommending you for the Army Commendation Medal for your actions yesterday, but more importantly, we want you to know that your stumble 3 weeks ago is forgotten. What matters is how you responded when it truly counted." As Marcus left the meeting, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. The shame and doubt that had plagued him for weeks were gone, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose and pride. 6 months later, Marcus stood once again at his post, but everything had changed. The viral video of his confrontation with the disruptive student had accumulated over 50 million views across all platforms, becoming one of the most shared military-related videos in internet history. But more importantly, it had sparked a national conversation about respect, service, and the true meaning of honor. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier had seen a dramatic increase in visitors, but the quality of those visits had changed too. People approached with a new level of reverence and understanding. Parents used Marcus's story to teach their children about respect and sacrifice. Schools organized field trips specifically to witness the changing of the guard ceremony, and teachers prepared their students beforehand about the significance of what they would see. Marcus had received thousands of letters from around the world. Veterans thanked him for defending their honor. Gold Star families expressed gratitude for protecting the memory of their loved ones. Young people wrote to say his example had inspired them to consider military service, but the letter that meant the most came from an unexpected source. It was from the college student who had disrupted the ceremony that day. His name was Tyler Morrison, and his letter was handwritten on simple notebook paper. "Sergeant Thompson, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to write this. What I did that day was inexcusable. I was young, stupid, and looking for attention in all the wrong ways. Your response changed my life. I've spent the last 6 months learning about military service, visiting veterans, and volunteering at the VA hospital near my college. I'm applying to join the Army next year. I want to serve with the same honor you showed that day. Thank you for not giving up on me when I had given up on myself." Marcus had written back, encouraging Tyler's decision and offering to serve as a reference for his military application. It was a reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments come from choosing compassion over condemnation. The impact extended far beyond individual stories. The video had been used in military training programs as an example of how to handle difficult situations with professionalism and dignity. It was shown at military academies, veteran gatherings, and even in high school civics classes across the country. James Mitchell continued his monthly visits to the tomb, but now he often brought other veterans with him. He had started a small organization called Honor Guard Supporters that educated the public about the significance of military ceremonies and the importance of respectful behavior at memorial sites. "Marcus showed us that redemption isn't about erasing our mistakes," James often told visitors. "It's about how we respond when our character is truly tested." On this particular morning, as Marcus performed his ceremonial walk, He noticed a familiar figure in the crowd. Tyler Morrison stood at attention, wearing a crisp Army uniform with the rank of Private First Class. He had successfully completed basic training and was now stationed at Fort Belvoir just outside Washington, D.C. After the ceremony, Tyler approached Marcus with obvious nervousness and excitement. "Sergeant Thompson," Tyler said, saluting smartly. "Private First Class Morrison reporting, sir." Marcus returned the salute with a smile. "It's good to see you, Tyler. How's Army life treating you?" "It's challenging, but I love it," Tyler replied. "I think about that day at the tomb every time I put on this uniform. It reminds me why I'm here and what I'm serving for." As they talked, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them both to this moment. His stumble 6 months ago had felt like the end of the world, but it had actually been the beginning of something much more meaningful. He had learned that true strength isn't about never falling. It's about how you stand back up and what you choose to protect when it matters most. The viral video that had initially brought him shame had ultimately become a source of inspiration for millions of people. It proved that in an age of social media and instant judgment, authentic moments of character and integrity could still cut through the noise and touch people's hearts. As Marcus prepared for his next shift, he looked at the tomb of the unknown soldier, with the same reverence he had always felt, but now with an added understanding. These unknown soldiers represented not just the ultimate sacrifice, but also the idea that every person has the potential for honor, regardless of their past mistakes. The internet had given him a second chance to define his legacy, and he had chosen to make it count. In protecting the dignity of the fallen, he had found his own redemption and inspired countless others to believe in the power of doing what's right, even when the whole world is watching.